No, not Fantanos. This is the one that crashed our game. You want to see me do it again?
I'm pretty sure
Ben Shapiro is sucking my penis.
I literally, he's blinking on and off of my screen.
Casey, whatever. Stop using that fucking weapon.
Yeah, the brothers actually look like this.
fish are confusing.
Ooh, let's see.
It's above us. Oh, dude, yeah, no, my game is eating a fat one as well. Whoa.
You can craft it. We do have some of this. We just need healing potions.
Jesus Christ.
I just got killed so hard.
God.
Oh my gosh, this is satire. Whoa.
Fucking bitch. Fuck, what the fuck is this?
Calamity is the Terraria community's answer to the post-Moonlord credits that end every playthrough, taking an already enjoyable game and turning it up to 11, maybe even 12. That's a big number. New enemies, from the amusing to the unnerving. New items, from the menacing to the funny, honestly.
It summons a pet Danny DeVito.
And new bosses, from the challenging to the downright unfair. Calamity changes up every aspect of vanilla Terraria, from the tall spire of the astral infection to the depths of... adding hours of enjoyment and replayability to a game that was already pretty darn close to perfection. But to fully explore this strange new world, we first got to create it. Large, corruption, and on expert mode for reasons I'll get into momentarily. And when it came down to naming it, we decided on creating the world. What do we name the world, fellas? Penisland? Okay, anyone else?
I was thinking Hiroshima, but
It's my birthday, you can't tell me no.
Let me just say real quick that it's quite ironic that this playthrough was a sort of birthday present to my best friend, as all throughout he was consistently the saltiest, most tilted, and most swear-prone player throughout our entire group. And it's not like him getting any older made him any more mature. On the topic of maturity, you must remember that we are all very professional individuals. We take our work seriously.
Where's the biggest boobied lady? I'm not picking that one.
We always choose the most fitting name that we can. I name myself Weakest Jolian Fan. It is yet another reference to my veiled homosexuality and the fact that Jobin Hagashkata is a sexy beast. My friend, on the other hand,
I can actually make that my username.
chose to express himself in a different manner. Joining me in my penis associate is Ginger, returning this time as some character from Dragon Ball Z. I don't really get it. I only read real mangas, such as, Monster Musume, but if necessary, I definitely could look into it. In addition to the original cast, we have a new arrival, Ruckus. He plays guitar. You're so sexy. Has yet to cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
get back here, you slimy Jew.
Oh my god.
And lacked the modicum of self-control needed to not blow something up every 30 seconds.
Are you serious?
And yes, ladies, he is single. I've left his number in the description, and here's his address if you'd like to, visit him. For legal reasons, that is a joke. Instead of going to his house, you could watch us set up ours. Yet again, a very simplistic design, but it fulfills its main purpose of keeping us safe for this most eventful night. When you begin your Calamity playthrough, you are given a starter bag to get you on your way. A weapon for each class, such as the Squirrel Staff, or a stack of throwing bricks, which I must say were very satisfying to throw. Hey, is there
A wooden bear.
Remember that.
Along with that, there were some potions and other things, but all that became ancillary when compared to the Calamity music box. You could of course stick to, or you could dare to enjoy the beautiful music of DM-Dokuro. I'm just saying, you have options. On a side note, this isn't even the hottest track on the Tale of a Cruel World album, which I encourage you to give a listen to. It is a pretty good opener though, to say the least. Opening back up our starter bag, we find 3 ancient artifacts, which, after successfully barricading our home from all threats, we prepare to activate. First, we drink deeply from the blood fountain of Revengeance, entering Revengeance mode. Yes, it is yet another Metal Gear Rising Revengeance reference, and it does in fact make the game even harder than Expert mode. Next, we grasp the Satanic Scepter of Death, activating its hellish power and entering Death mode. Alright. And finally, we, some verb ending in ing, with the Tormented Mind of Malice, entering Malice mode. By doing so, we have begun our journey in the true man's world. We have set our game to the hardest difficulty in Calamity. The Terraria world originally was one of relative indifference. Sure, it did want to kill you, but by entering Malice mode, it is now directly hostile to our existence. Everything hits harder, has more health, moves differently, and in every way, every enemy is now better equipped to kill us. Luckily, Calamity doesn't fully throw us to the wolves, giving us a bit of a boost to help us on our way. Ladies and gentlemen, or more likely just gentlemen, let me introduce you to my 2 favorite bars, Rage and Adrenaline, both halves of the same high-octane coin. Rage, the red one, builds when in proximity to enemies, and when fully charged can be activating, giving you about 6 odd seconds of 135% damage. It encourages you to stay as close as you can to enemies, as it charges faster the closer you are. And then, when it's fully charged,
You ain't a little baby bitch, it'll be fine.
bang! Pretty good damage bonus. Well, that is cool and all, I'd have to say that Adrenaline, the green one, overshadows it in every way. When a boss is alive, Adrenaline will passively build, taking a minute to fully charge up. And if you get hit even once, it's all gone. No! Meaning that for a full minute you have to have perfect movement, perfect prediction, you have to get everything down. You have to fully enter the zone, a space I'll be talking about in a bit. And once you charge it up fully, once you've nailed down the patterns, once you got everything in place, you just...
Oh, did you see how much damage that does? This was hard for a second. I could check for boss log.
Suffice to say, it's pretty fun. And if you'll believe it, it's not even my favorite bar in this mod. That prize goes to this one, right here. The Stealth Bar. Stealth is the main crux of what makes Rogue class so fun, and it is deceptively simple. Your Stealth Bar charges when you don't attack and resets to 0 when you do. The higher you allow it to charge up, i.e. the more time you wait between each attack, the more damage each individual strike deals. And that's about it. You guys following? Good. Actually, shouldn't you be asking, much like I was at this point, why you should wait to let your stealth charge up? I mean, the damage you deal at full stealth can't be as consistently high as damage dealt when spamming, no? Counter to what I and potentially you thought, spamming is quite inferior to measured, patient attacks, owing to the hidden fact that rogue weapons exhibit exponential decay when repeatedly used. That is to say, in non-nerd-ese, your damage shoots down with successive attacks. Here, an example. Same armor, same gear, same weapon. We have spamming, it's coming down, and patiently waiting. I'm sure you can see the difference, but what you may also be able to see is that Rogue prioritizes accuracy over spraying and praying. If you wait for your stealth to charge up and you miss, you've wasted your effort, your time. But if you land that shot, bang, you receive the satisfaction of not having your time wasted, and a break from your teammates complaining that you are a waste of space or a non-team player.
Good Lord, you guys are the most useless teammates I've ever had.
Both of which are very good things. The best analog to this feeling of landing that shot that I can think of is from Team Fortress 2, specifically the Spy, who, it may come as no surprise, is my favorite character to play. You wait, looking for that perfect opportunity. Interestingly enough, you are invisible in both games, and when you finally get the chance, bang! If you've ever pulled off a trick stab in Team Fortress 2, you already know how it feels to play Rogue in Terraria Calamity. For those who don't get it, I think the feeling I'm trying to communicate was condensed very succinctly by Lazy Purple.
Single fire weapon.
Or in our case, rogue weapons, which are similar enough to single-fire weapons so that the point still stands.
Feel great to use. When you shoot these guns, it's like bang, you know?
That's what I'm talking about!
When you shoot these guns, it feels like boom! Like boom! Like boom! Like boom!
Couldn't have put it better myself. And if I haven't done a good enough job of selling this class so far, I will now present my trump. Stealth strikes. When your stealth charges all the way up, your rogue weapons not only deal the maximum amount of damage they can deal, but also gain new functionality. Some may split more than usual. Some may assume superposition and strike your enemies from every possible direction at once. And some may crash your game. And now, faced with the dichotomy of the Virgin
That's kind of small.
versus the Chad, I'm sure you can see that there's an advantage in waiting and in picking this class. Only halfway through our first night, I was already hooked. So logically, I immediately went out to upgrade my gear. Yes? Well, no. First, I decided to do a little bit of trolling. Build more of our house. Making myself useful, I asked the guide what I could construct out of copper, and safe to say I liked what I saw. Between the glowing swords and the decryption computer, which was purportedly a component of something called the code breaker, sounds pretty interesting to me, I found an accessory that gave me more rogue damage and some retention of my stealth. Whenever I used a stealth strike, sign me up. I needed acid wood though, so I once again returned to the sulfuric seas. This time I was ready to take on the local fauna. What I wasn't exactly ready for was the angler popping out of the first gator I killed, but I just rolled with it. Unknown to me at the time, this was the beginning of a pattern that would hold throughout our playthrough. He would not be the last NPC to emerge from the body of a fallen foe, nor was he anywhere near the coolest, or the most durable. Avoiding a similar fate, I returned home, crafting the Coin of the Sea, realizing that I hadn't fully understood its utility. Instead of leaving 25% of my stealth in the tank whenever I used a stealth strike, as I thought I would, it set the bar for my stealth strikes at only 75%. Meaning I would have to do less waiting to fully unlock my weapon's potential. And, even better, it had an upgrade down the line that lowered the requirement even further to 50%. At some point in the future, I could perform 2 stealth strikes back to back. Pretty cool, huh? Yet another pattern can be observed here, and it is tied to the material tag. This pattern would usually play out like so. I'd craft a new weapon, or acquire some new drop, see that tag on it, and discovered something sicker down the road. While I was having fun with my bricks, I discovered—
Oh my gosh, the apocalypse. What the heck? That's an endgame item. Look at this thing.
The spent fuel container was also pretty cool, but the totality breakers looked a lot cooler. And they definitely were. Bones made furniture, shadow keys, and something called the Seared Pan, a ludicrously powerful endgame weapon that doubled as a Team Fortress 2 reference. But at this point, I'd only touched the tip of this iceberg. At this point, we called it a night. Emphasis on the word "we" there. While my friends dozed, I went to the underground desert to further explore a biome I had found earlier, the Sunken Sea. This was the second of 5 biomes Calamity had added, and it seemed that they were going to just get better and better considering what I had seen so far. I mean, music alone really sold it for me. So I sat, lights off and house quiet, enjoying a calm oasis in an otherwise cruel world. Even though I was enjoying myself, I had a nagging suspicion I wasn't supposed to be here yet. For one, enemies seemed a bit too sparse, and secondly, my pickaxe had no effect on the cave walls. This really hindered my exploration, but I was able to access some sort of laboratory sitting on top of everything. And this is where things get interesting, and Calamity starts to utilize Terraria's mostly unused environmental storytelling potential. The story of Terraria is quite easy to grapple with. You're the good guy, and just like in mature Japanese animation, hentai even, the thing with all the tentacles is the bad guy. There are hints that more is going on behind the scenes, but you've got to go out of your way if you want a full picture. Calamity is far more upfront with its story. For example, this lab isn't alone, being one piece in a set of 5 scattered around the world. And though they all lie in very disparate locations, ranging from heaven to hell, ice to jungle, they all share the same general design philosophy, implying construction by a singular genius individual. Powered by lava, guarded by turrets, and filled with highly advanced technology, it's clear that whoever built these knew what they were doing, and it is also clear that some form of experimentation was conducted in each. Take this lab I've just found. Right in the entryway, a glass box filled with sand, water, and coral, likely an aquarium. In hell, a forge with stacks of hellstone nearby, implying potential experimentation with the naturally occurring materials. And in the jungle, several plague containment beds, which presumably house, or more likely used to house, live specimens. Just looking at these structures, a world of purpose is implied. Form follows function after all, and when you fully explore them, you hit gold, discovering in each a log written, likely, by the scientists behind this all. And even though each of these is a multi-paragraph exposition dump, they just raise more questions. For example, the jungle log speaks of an artificial plague concocted from, quote-unquote, a virus capable of devouring and converting almost anything, and nanotechnology constructed painstakingly for the sake of control. Paired with this is an illustration of one, quote-unquote, mechanically augmented queen bee made to spread this plague that purportedly grew uncontrollable, to the point where the only feasible form of containment would be to just let it roam freely in the jungle, and it never says the thing was decommissioned. With this in mind, and a set of broken open containment beds lying a couple feet away, you do have to ask, why haven't we bumped into this amalgam of steel and insect flesh yet? Will we bump into this queen bee at any point? Where are the infected jungle creatures? Why would someone create such a weapon? Who was in Paris? Why is the tundra so cold? What is the fusion of spirits that haunts the dungeon? Is that Skeletron or something else? What's with this massive cosmic worm? Why is the funny Metal Gear Rising Revengeance furry porn bait and switch guy's sword here? How did I come to a point in life where that's a sentence I've both written and recorded? Who's the witch that screwed up the crags of the underworld? What are the crags of the underworld? Why doesn't the author like her? How long ago did he dissect every part of this place? He's clearly gone. Now, looking up towards the macroscopic, does that mean he knows about us? Will he ever come back? All good questions, and to think that 5 relatively simple structures spur on this multitude of inquiries. That's not even mentioning these encrypted schematics, as that will make things a lot more convoluted than I have the patience for right now. I will circle back to them, of course, but the point I'm getting at is this. Where Terraria didn't spend the time or effort required to create an engrossing narrative, Calamity wove a complex tapestry that slowly but surely becomes illuminated the further you progress through the game. As in all good stories, the more information you get, the more questions you have, and it's one of the main highlights of the mod. But that's enough reading, studying, and exposition for now. Now it is time for some action, some real story progression. At this reasonable point of the video, we take on our first boss, the Eye of Cthulhu, getting to know Malice Mode just a bit better. The Eye is now a lot faster, and he changes phase at only 75% health as opposed to 50%. Cool, I guess. Kinda changes the fight up a bit for those like myself who have battled this Eye dozens of times, but it still was pretty similar to vanilla. As if in response to my lack of enthusiasm, the skies of the sulfuric seas immediately begin to darken upon his defeat, signaling the beginning of the acid rain event. We rush over to find that this polluted ocean has somehow gotten worse, with the rain giving all manner of new enemies purview to leave the water and harass us. Between frogs who have no shaft, fish that have no balls, and eels that probably don't have buttholes either, everything here is clearly fed on too much radiation, and our melting skin is much worse off because of it. And this is only the first of the 3 tiers this event has. Much like the Old One's Army, the Acid Rain event evolves throughout our playthrough, meaning that we'll have to come back for it for more gear and more challenge. A pretty good example of Calamity's great replayability value, which I'll explore more in depth later. And while the music is pretty good, Ne-An-Der-Thal doing a good job as always. Editing Hellzone Spyman here. This is why you check everything before you start writing your script. Ne-An-Der-Thal did not actually write the Acid Rain theme. It was written by Rover Drive X, just to give him credit. Back to the video. I gotta say, I much more preferred the musical stylings of Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and Jimmy Page. Fooling in the Rain is pretty fun. I decided against
Hey, what's that?
Here it comes, here it comes.
Whoa. Oh, I got you on the first try.
Everything in this first tier drops sulfuric scales, the missing piece of that armor set I discovered earlier. With these and some acid wood, I make said armor, which grants me 70 more max stealth instead of 50, and highly effective underwater movement, quite helpful in several underwater locales. Paired with this was the contaminated bile, which is very effective against enemies that stand still, such as King Slime, who has put on a lot of weight since we last saw him. Paradoxically, he is also a lot faster, and the gem in his crown takes on a mind of its own when we get his health low enough. But with the lingering radiation cloud that my bile left on impact, we made quick work of him. The Eater of Worlds was not similarly easy, as the strength of the bile's lingering effect became a weakness when it split this worm into several pieces, all of which became faster and faster as their total health lowered. And as they zipped along, each segment let loose a barrage of Greek fire and bile spit, turning the entire corruption into just a crossfire hurricane. Here, one of the main pros and cons of multiplayer Calamity became apparent, and I want to touch on that real quick. You see, having 4 people on at a time meant that we had a lot of leeway. Whenever one of us died, chances were, more often than not, that there was still at least one other guy still going. This made boss fights easier, but the difficulty of Malice mode usually balanced it out. Let's ignore that we won this first fight in an albeit chaotic manner. This multiplayer making stuff easier thing is part of one of my bigger issues with Calamity, so don't let it fully fade from your mind. For now though, let us move on to our very first Calamity boss, who happens to be stalking under these same arid sands, with a desert medallion crafted from, you guessed it, sand, cacti, and a couple antlion mandibles. We get the attention of the Desert Scourge. This dried out husk of a worm will charge at us, attempting to grab a rather large bite before her equally starved children can get anything in edgewise. In addition, she shoots out sand and, dies?
In fact, no matter what, Desert Scourge will be a pushover.
I guess nobody handles worm bosses better than we do. Don't worry too much though, this is not the last one that Calamity throws at us, and they luckily only get cooler and harder from here. But before we get to that, we ought to pay a visit to the now rumbling underground desert to properly explore the Sunken Sea. Upon arrival, a couple things immediately stand out. A, my pickaxe can now break the euthanasia sand comprising these caverns, and B, said caverns are now burgeoning with life. We have what looks like crystalline catfish that, on upon further inspection, actually look a little bit like Duke Fishron, maybe they're cousins or something. Itty bitty jellyfish, and most importantly, the giant clam. A mini boss that the 4 of us made quick work of. Much to our surprise, yet another NPC popped out, and I didn't notice him? It seems that I was more focused on other things. I eventually clued in though, and came back to check him out. While the items Amidius, the Sea King, sells aren't really that good, the information he shares with you when you ask for his help is. You see, this wizened fish is the lore NPC, who provides trivia about Calamity's lore all throughout our playthrough, usually foreshadowing what's next in progression. For now, he talks of ninja clans serving slimy gods, hidden ores within the caverns, and a beautiful underwater kingdom that was destroyed in some disaster long ago. In addition to fueling our curiosity as it relates to this planet, Amidius grants us a literal bubble of protection that both holds as long as we don't take damage and grants us unlimited airtime underwater. Something that would come in very useful when we eventually got around to exploring. Promptly, I made him a rather lackluster housing near the sulfuric sea. Do you see what I was aiming for here? When I modeled it? No? Yeah. Not my best build, I'll be honest. Most of my building energy during this playthrough was focused on something else, and I'm sure current construction choices will be forgiven once that's revealed. And then we went to fight Crabulon, who... sorry, one sec. I must say, Ne-An-Der-Thal went pretty hard for a boss that's effectively, in the words of my friend,
It's like Team Slime, but with mushrooms.
But I'm definitely not complaining. It is a bit annoying that the name of this track is spelled much like an edgy 12-year-old in Call of Duty would spell his username, but I figured it out eventually. Oh yeah, sorry, the boss. Crabulon will let loose a flurry of slowly floating spores, fungal missiles, and if that doesn't work, he'll just try and step on us. All this wasn't too much of a challenge as we beat him first try, but it was definitely worth it as he drops the mushroom plasma root that upon consumption increases our rage mode's duration by 1 whole second. Definitely not the best shrooms I'll be doing this playthrough, but it's still pretty helpful. It's actually about the only good thing this guy drops. I mean, I could use the myco root, but It just seems counterintuitive. It's a rogue weapon, but it's designed to be spammed. Why would Calamity make a weapon so antithetical to the playstyle they've tried to cultivate? Why would they do this multiple times? Both good questions that I don't think I can discern the answer to right now. I am thankful that they at least made Cryogen a boss you can't summon easily by accident. You have to consciously find those 50 mushrooms, throw them together at a demon altar, and then go to the requisite biome that is underground to take down the shroomy crab. On the other hand, or claw, or tentacle, whatever, is the hive mind. Oh my gosh, hive mind. Here. Okay, that one's probably our fault, but I don't think you can blame us for this one, unless you count Yami-Yuki jinxing it as a cause.
You guys know if a falling star fell on one of the hive cysts, if it would die or not?
A few moments later.
Falling star broke cyst, killed cyst.
Yeah.
Here I am fighting hive mind.
Eventually, we did break the hive cyst on purpose when we were actually prepared to fight, and we took on the hive mind. One of the two evil bosses that Calamity adds. With its teleportation, hive blobs, and whatever this is, it is clear that this guy is intended to be a corrupt reflection of the brain of Cthulhu. While on the topic, I must mention the Crimson World counterpart, the Perforators, a group of bloody worms styled after the Eater of Worlds, all controlled by a strange floating umbrella? I don't know, man, I just play this mod. When either boss is defeated, the ground glitters with cyan light, one of the hidden auras Amidius mentioned. And in a move of unprecedented efficiency, an act of as of yet hidden intelligence even, we dig our elevator and grab some of this new material. A little.
It's Aerolite, you fucking Ne-An-Der-Thal.
This two birds with one stone act was actually a landmark achievement, one giant leap for mankind that was quickly eclipsed.
Guys, live update.
Oh my god.
Await the wall of flesh.
In those moments where I didn't wipe the entire team, we actually got a bit of exploring done. My fellow craftsman in the phallic arts found a sword that allowed him to do this. And while that's going on, I discovered the Brimstone Crags, which Draedon actually did quite a good job of describing. Yes, the ghasts in living rock are terrible, and the lava does in fact melt the flesh from your bones. It's easy to see why Draedon didn't have much success here. This liquid rock is quite testy, volatile, and on the other hand there's Aureliite. Where the magma is intractable, Aureliite is supple, smooth. Where Draedon couldn't use one, the other was malleable, easily formed into technologically complex machinery. And where Draedon trekked, we followed, finally putting those schematics I mentioned earlier to good use. By consulting the holographic blueprint we discovered in the Sunken Sea, new connections are revealed to us. Dubious plating, suspicious scrap, sea prisms, and aerolite, all materials that didn't seem to mesh too well together before, suddenly click when viewed in conjunction with Draedon's design notes. These finely detailed diagrams are very enlightening, and I love the idea that you're tinkering, discovering, and learning as you recreate these weapons. In reality, you're just pressing craft in the magic storage system, but the mystique of all this makes it just that much more enthralling. And to think this is only the first tier of Draedon's arsenal. After deciphering the Tinkerer's plan, I constructed the tracking disc, which didn't do anything? Sorry, I constructed and promptly charged the tracking disc using Draedon's own power cells. Nothing like this in vanilla Terraria, eh? What's even cooler is its performance in battle, owing to the fact that it's a little, como se dice, busted? As it flies, it shoots out high damage lasers every, quarter a second, leading to every stealth strike dealing roughly 1,000 damage. And it also goes through walls. A good weapon all around that proved very useful when we went to fight the Queen Bee. An excursion that proved far more calamitous than our adventures in hell. There was one accidental summon, Miwin Jungle. It's funny, guys, it's funny, I swear. And then another.
Help, she is eating my ass.
Casey, are you with us right now?
Yeah, I'm about to die.
Casey, could you talk a bit more for me, please?
Yeah.
And yeah, you guessed it, another, and I don't really think I can add too much to this frenetic clip here, so enjoy.
This thing too.
Let's
It
hope
goes through
that
that.
That wasn't me.
That was me, actually.
That was you, Ryan. You broke it again. Oh my god.
Again. Oh, I can't believe you would do this for the second time today.
I'm a children.
Ready?
Who's throwing bombs?
Surrounded by idiots.
How do we beat this boss? How do we beat this game? How did I get here? And most importantly, where are the queen bee's mechanical augments? Is she infected with the plague? I don't know. Jungle aids or not, we beat her, with me and Jackson getting full adrenaline. Wait, that would mean we didn't get hit for a minute. Wait. But Malice Mode Queen Bee is really fast and shoots way more projectiles? It's a mystery, I guess. We followed this victory up with one against Skeletron, who is an entirely new fiend in Malice Mode, with double the hands for double the pimpin', spectral rays, and a constant flurry of ethereal skulls. This boss scratches the itch the Eye of Cthulhu failed to. The old running in circles strategy no longer works, as you now have to put conscious thought into dodging those aforementioned rays and skulls. Furthermore, removing his hands is not optional anymore, as he's invulnerable until you do, and they grow back at 25% health. This was probably one of my favorite fights so far, made all the better by this perfect tracking this throw with rage.
He's teleporting on my screen? Help.
I don't know what more I have to say. Rogue is simply where it's at. Now I'd love to say that Calamity made the pre-hard mode dungeon a lot cooler, and that me and my friends found a lot of new stuff, but that is not the case. As per the base game, this is not the last time we'll be coming here, but it's gonna take a while, so stay tuned. And rounding off this hat trick, we prepared an arena in the Corruption to, get slimed, if you will. The Slime Gods serve as both a take on King Slime, our first pre-hard mode boss, and the penultimate pre-hard mode boss. Unlike the Slime King, these guys are actually a bit of a challenge. The two major gelatinous masses, Crimson and Corruption, will take turns being possessed by the core, which makes them much more agile and deadly. If sitting on you doesn't work, they will shoot globs of gel out from their body, and the core will fly around sporadically between them, attempting to ram into you. All of this, plus the splitting into multiples like in the popular game, Minecraft, makes the fight pretty hard to keep track of. No! But, as with all things, we managed it somehow, crossing the last boss in this stage of progression off the list.
Yeah!
Sorry, second to last boss. Now with the primo gear, the top of the line weapons, and the steely determination of mannish boys, we went to hell and fought the hardest boss in this entire mod. Seriously, what Malice Mode does to the Wall of Flesh is something else, which borders between acceptable challenge and cruel sadistic punishment. First, there's the 31,000 health to contend with. Not the most important bit, but this guy is already 7,000 health harder than last time. Then, there's the laser barrage, the other laser barrage, and then yet another laser barrage. There's a lot of them, that's the point. There's also his occasional rushing forward if one player strays too far ahead, forcing the entire party to stay up close and uncomfortable. And the leeches didn't really help either. Nor did the impossible to see until it was too late demon size. And, well, let's not forget, everything did deal loads of damage. We lost this first fight, and the next 5. And then the next 10. The screen was too cluttered, the projectiles too fast, the terrain unmanageable, the connection too poor, and the gamers really not that good at this game. We were not having a good go at it, to say the least. And this repeated failure over the course of several days got to us. We got mad. We said unwise things.
Casey, can you just say the N-word real quick?
And there's a good chance that this was one of the main factors that led my friend, the biggest JoJo fan in the room, to get a new computer sometime down the line.
That's how frustrated I am with this piece of shit.
As we struggled, some solutions were thrown out. Good idea. Maybe we haven't done enough fishing.
I think I gotta go.
I even offered sexual favors to a man. I will give you the sloppiest, toppiest. No! Saddest of all, it seemed that I had to put aside the silent-only build to win this one. You see, up until this point, all my accessories had the modifier silent instead of warding, as I considered the trade of 20 potential defense for 40% faster stealth charge a worthwhile one. After all, if we weren't here to play Glass Cannon Rogue build, then we aren't here to have fun or enjoyment. But considering my frailty, I did have to let it go. For now at least. And did that help? Did we beat the wall right after doing this? Well, no, not really. Not at all even. It was bad. The situation at times seemed quite impossible, with us getting tantalizingly close to victory, yet missing the mark all the same. It got so bad that one of the weaker-willed among us started to suggest bringing in his friend, Jetstream Sam.
We don't have Jetstream Sam on our side, that's the issue.
It was just too much for his delicate feelings, I guess. Oh no. But that is not the way of things. That is not the path of light. That of MANDOM. We aren't going to cheat ourselves when it comes to this fight. The real solution, and the piece of advice that I gave him time and time again in response to all his wailing, his complaining, his crying on, was honestly, Yami Yugi.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Right now. Learn to fuck up. Right, shut the fuck up. Hey. Oh, yeah. Learn to fuck up.
Good lord, you guys are the most useless teammates I've ever had.
Yeah, he might be right. At least I'm not at the bottom of the totem pole. That dubious honor falls to Yami Yugi, who bit it straight out of the hard mode gate.
Oh. Sorry.
Dog.
Much to his surprise, prismatic lace wings began spawning right after the wall of flesh, as opposed to after Plantera, one of the many changes Calamity makes to this stage in progression. Hard mode ores spawn right after killing the wall of flesh, and in this version we have access to both. Smashing demon altars now gives us souls of night, and there's a new biome next to the dungeon, filled with strange humanoids, weird floaters, and hulking beasts named Atlases. Besides having Kumar Arm Syndrome, they drop Titan Hearts, which can be sacrificed, only during the night, to this strange monolithic beacon. Doing this will summon Astrum Deus, a boss that we were nowhere near prepared for, and lead to a team wipe. Or, in other words, it is what it is. Turning to a different worm boss, we cooked up some seafood, which is a fairly delicious treat in the eyes of the Aquatic Scourge. The Aquatic Scourge? Well, it's just like its sister, the Desert Scourge, I guess. Wait, these two are sisters? That means they're female. Sorry, it's just that, you know, this creature being in any way feminine doesn't click with me. Oh, wait, on second thought. I digress. The Aquatic Scourge would fly around, shooting out sand teeth and leaving a path of toxic clouds in its wake, but Yami Yugi's ice chunk weapon dealt a little too much piercing damage for any of that to actually happen. Calamity balances out the difficulty here by bringing another tier of acid rain to our doorstep, this time with little water bugs and bulbous mosquitoes in the toxic mix. There's also the Cragmaw Mire, a challenging mini-boss to drop some pretty useful stuff for everyone involved. From this second tier, I get the Nuke Fish, which does exactly what you think it does, and the Spent Fuel Container, whose cloud of radiation is very effective in cloud control. From the boss itself, we get another piece of equipment geared towards underwater exploration, the Aquatic Emblem, another item that would improve our chances of survival greatly in our future exploration of... After adding a new set of armor crafted from the pieces of the Astral Monolith and Titan Hearts, we took on the Destroyer, who is now huge! I'm talking seriously large, really bonkers, honestly, packing some Dobon Hunkaro probes to boot, and a massive Bahuka Bangaloo health pool. The whole boss is now a Tanahangarakuga large, and he has the damage to match. So large is he that we took 4 L's in a row before we tried Skeletron Prime. Too much the same end. Luckily, his hands had not been doubled again, but his speed was. And this, the rocket barrages, and glut of lasers led to another couple losses. I'd talk about the twins, but, you know, we didn't even try. We thought a better idea to set up an arena in the tundra, craft the Cryonic Key, and summon Cryogen.
Let's kick it!
Cryogen brings with him a snowstorm of projectiles, shooting icicles every which way whilst attempting to ram you, and cloaking himself within a regenerating shield that you'll have to hack through over and over again. A simple yet challenging boss fight that I'd love to say we solved, memorizing his movement and perfecting our own. But it's not what happened.
You're so bad at this.
My balls. I spawned in Wormhole and he was directly on me, shoving his icicle penis up my rear end.
This was a very painful section of the game, to say the least. Eventually, we got the upper hands on all three mechanical bosses, spawning Orichalcum, Mithril, Titanium, Adamantite, and Hallowed Ore, which is a new one, in our worlds underground. And with these new metals, the secrets of Draedon's schematics were finally laid bare. Draedon's first set of designs were easy enough to understand, requiring only a glance to decipher the finely detailed diagrams of numerous devices and weaponry dancing across the holographic screen. But to fully comprehend the second set, one needs to do some decryption. After raiding each laboratory in turn, I combined dubious plating, mysterious circuitry, and a charging station to construct the codebreaker base, which has to be placed out in the open.
Look at this person.
With some glass and unattended copper wire, I added the decryption computer and decrypted the planetoid schematic. And I cannot stress how cool it feels to do this. You watch as Draedon's message slowly appears, each word clicking into place as the computer does its work. It's basically a cutscene, and I'm very happy that the Calamity devs did a good job of making it feel, natural, fitting into the Terraria world. For the first half of his message, Draedon waxes poetically about weapons and fighters, but in the addendum, he suddenly expresses hope that we prove worthy test subjects. Left to ponder that, we now know how to make new things. With Mithril and Souls of Sight, I made yet another showcase of Draedon's engineering genius, the Frequency Manipulator. Its initial javelin spawns into 3 homing bolts that all deal a healthy amount of damage, and it sits in the sweet spot between challenging and rewarding. As I said earlier, the Rogue class puts all the responsibility on you. You have to time your shots and aim well, being careful not to waste your self-strikes. It's your fault if you miss. But homing rogue weapons, like the charging disc, go against this design philosophy, removing this challenge and the reward that comes with overcoming it entirely. Yet, at the same time, having your effectiveness weighed entirely on your aim can be quite frustrating. A playthrough where you never really had to try would be just as bad as one where your effort never truly affected the outcome. And right in the Goldilocks zone between these two outcomes lies the Frequency Manipulator. If you hit an enemy directly, it takes the damage from the javelin and from each of the equally deadly bolts. But if you miss, you'll hit some blocks and only the 3 bolts will hit. This means that high accuracy is favored but not required, as a direct hit does roughly 25% more damage than a miss. Good aim gives you the same feeling of accomplishment that getting adrenaline does. Sure, you don't need either to beat a boss, but both are very rewarding. With our new gear, we get mining, digging up loads of chlorophyte from our jungle and charred ore from the Brimstone Crags. This ore is what finally allows me to craft the Rune Medallion, and yeah, 2 stealth strikes back to back. What more is there to say? Well, you could say that Cryogen became a lot easier. And you'd be right. We barely even had time to enjoy the Northern Lights before we put this playa on ice, freeing Permafrost, the Archmage mentioned in Draedon's Tundra log, from his frigid prison. Who, despite being a wizard of ice, is strangely packing heat, if you know what I mean. He's canonically well endowed. Also lying among the chunks of ice is Cryogen's Soul, a pair of wings that boost your damage by 7 whole %. I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but Wings and Calamity do much more than just grant mobility. Pixie Wings give you 60 more health, Mothorn Wings give 5% more damage and 5 defense, and the Soul of Cryogen brings low-level irritation. It's up to you to decide if 7% more damage is worth this constant nails on chalkboard sound.
Summoned weapon I got. Cryogenics.
I decided to ignore these. Dying over and over again to all these bosses was already frustrating enough. Speaking of which, we have even more to fight. Yeah, this part of the game moved pretty quickly, as did we down to the Brimstone Crags. There, we built an arena, crafted the charred idol, and summoned the Brimstone Brimstone Element. Whoa! The Brimstone Elemental is gonna make me act up. The Brimstone Elemental is a nice set of Deez. Sorry. The Brimstone Elemental has a nice set of these, and I'd like to 2 pickets to Titsburg. No wonder this fight took so long. We were a bit too bricked up to be paying attention to anything other than her, assets. The Brimstone Elemental is the most powerful of the many elementals you'll find in this mod, servicing us, oh, dang it, providing us with a challenging boss battle. At first, she flies around shooting volleys of unholy fire, with the occasional teleport thrown for good measure, and in her second phase she adds a laser. All throughout, she constantly spawns these things called Brimlings to act as another obstacle in an already cluttered fight, and that's about it. Until she cocoons herself and enters a dodge phase. To survive this, you must adapt. To win, you must enter the zone. And for that to make sense, I've got some explaining to do. In my first video, I laid out the 2 ways to dodge attacks in Terraria, moving systematically and staying on the lookout for telegraphs, yet I missed some of the nuances therein. What do you do when the only telegraph you're given is the boss cocooning herself in cursed obsidian, or becoming invulnerable, or invisible? How do you see a telegraph that happens off screen? I mean, you could coordinate as a team, but do you really think our group can do that? It's in these moments that our third type of dodging, reflex dodging, makes itself known. When you're thinking fast, ready for whatever comes your way, you enter a space I like to call the zone. Here, nothing can touch you. The paths of any and all projectiles, telegraphed or otherwise, are laid out before you, and like a dancer, you can weave to and fro, avoiding danger with perfect timing and expert movement. No boss stands a chance against you, and even the hardest of dodge phases becomes child's play. That is, as long as you maintain your concentration. If you lose focus for even a moment, you're out.
I'm on shrooms.
Onus is entirely on you, and much like stealth strikes and adrenaline, it's fully your fault if you choke. And you will choke. You'll get mad. No! You'll swear.
God, how frustrated I am with this piece of shit.
But then you'll get right back into it, and much like crack cocaine, it is quite addictive. But don't just take my word for it. If you head over to YouTube and look up Calamity, I might have to say, if you look up Calamity no hit, you can find hours of footage wherein people show off the most incredible feats of dedication and skill. Now, I personally don't encourage you to recreate any of this, as this is a high-tier basement-dwelling goblin behavior, but the fact that people do it is a testament to how much fun this mechanic is to master. Luckily, the Brimstone Elemental did not demand perfection from us, allowing us to beat her after only a dozen or so tries, which makes me think she's a bit of a tutorial, an opener to introduce us to this style of fight. And, as we would find out shortly after, she was. With the stage set, the moon turned to blood, and the Eye of Desolation in hand, we summoned the titular boss of this mod, the Defiler of the Crags and Destroyer of the Sunken Kingdom, Calamitussy. Fighting Calamitussy is a complex, multi-step process that demands our concentration, whilst the music does its best to distract us. This piece, raw, unfiltered Calamity, is yet another reference to Undertale and its use of other melodies we've heard before in its composition. There's a piece from Cryogen's theme, Infestation, and many other pieces that I haven't written down, and I must say I quite like it. The boss herself will go from shooting skulls to ramming us until she hits 70% of her health, entering her very own dodge phase. Skulls fly from every direction, and at first you may be overwhelmed, but by focusing and entering the zone, you can deftly weave in and out of danger, hypothetically speaking.
Oh my god, what the f.
After that, back to skulls and ramming until 35% health, where the brothers are reborn! We have Cataclysm and Catastrophe, modeled after Spasmatism and Retinazer. One gouts flame, the other directs it in more concentrated blasts, and both try their best to ram us. Once these two are dealt with, Calamitussy complements us and wreathes herself in a ring of Soul Seekers, which makes her both harder to dodge and harder to hit. But she's not invulnerable. Just as it seems we're done, at 10% health we enter yet another dodge phase, with bursting projectiles thrown into the mix. Yet again, you must adapt, improvise, and tune up your reflexes to survive. And when you do, you can land that final direct hit on her, defeating the first iteration of this sorceress that we would be facing. She will be back, and she might be stronger. But right now, the ocean depths tremble, the subaquatic trench below the sulphurous seas beckons, the void calls, and we must answer. At long last, it becomes time to explore the abyss.